Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dollar Menu Podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Today, we're with Dr. Leon Eisen, a scientist and serial entrepreneur who holds a PhD in quantum physics. He's also the inventor behind the world's first FDA-cleared wrist pulse oximeter, which is a breakthrough that revolutionized how we monitor health. And beyond his inventions, he's also a recognized global leader as a member at the Forbes Business Council, where he mentors the next generation of innovators. So Dr. Eisen, before getting into the questions, is there any other thing you would like to share more about yourself?
No, that's okay. You presented very well. I just want to share that I'm an investor and I'm venture partner at the Silicon Valley Venture Capital Fund. So I continue like an entrepreneur. I have my own venture studio, about 4 companies today. So this is what I was going to add, and also I'm a mentor of several accelerators and helping entrepreneurs like you to thrive, to build their dreams.
So I guess I would like to first dive in more about your career experience in general. So before entering the business world, you actually spent a lot of time in the academia to complete your PhD in researching quantum physics since given your passion in science. So I guess my question is, what was that spark or I guess specific moment that made you realize that your future is not just in the lab, but also in the world of entrepreneurship and business building?
Yeah, good question. So I spent about 15 years in science, and also I did a postdoctoral research in quantum computers, initial quantum computers, something that people just started that time. It was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. And I can tell you that everything what like a scientist I did, I couldn't see some immediate return of investment, I would say, of my time, of my brain. And I was looking for something that I can just touch, I can see, and I can apply and improve people's life today, immediately. So I decided to move to industry. And I started working in the medical device industry with many medical device startups. So we were developing very unique devices like glucometer, like world first hemoglobin meter. And this was a very, very interesting transformation because I had to break my head to understand how industry works and how to be engineer. And this is so I was working like engineer for about 5 years. And at some point, I have another spark. I decided to start my own startup. And this is another story.
Yeah, so I guess it's really fascinating how like you transform your initial core scientific curiosity into something that you're actually building. And I guess it really, I guess through like the overall, like through selling products and like building these innovations, it really allows you to like see how your like invention or product impacts your consumers in real time. And it actually seemed to have birthed like a complete new methodology for how you like rethink business in general. So if I can recall, you've developed something called the quantum business thinking as a framework for aspiring business leaders. So I guess can you provide some instances where you think that your study in the logic of quantum physics, like for example, uncertainty or entanglement, can actually apply to making better decisions, whether in terms of the boardroom or like scaling a company, as you mentioned that you have like been in the past building a lot of startups and also working as an engineer in there.
Yeah, someday all the planet just get in line. And I understood after some time in business, not some time, about 15 years, I understood that actually everything what I did how did I think, is based on my experience like a physicist, is based on my understanding how our nature really works. And quantum physics, it's a theory that describes how our nature works. So if you want to think like God, want to think like nature, you can apply principles of quantum physics to anything what you're doing. So I developed 9 principles of quantum physics, and my book will be released soon. I wrote the book, but now I'm waiting for some scientific chapter that will be released in a scientific book first. So because quantum business thinking is based on science, and then I will release the book that will explain quantum business thinking, specifically designed for entrepreneurs, founders, and management. So, but you ask about uncertainty, for example, right? So business and startup business is the most uncertain thing you have in our world of business, right? So to think correctly, to think like a nature is crucial to succeed. So how to make any decision having very small amount of information. And this is what how uncertainty principle works in business. So I have small information and I have decide, but it goes together with many other principles. Because, for example, how you decide in uncertainty if you don't have superposition and you don't see some pattern of superposition of many things together. So you apply both principles. You identify superposition of many things. You don't decide unless you have at least some information that collapse your state into specific decision. Or take, for example, tunneling effect. In physics, it means with low energy, you can penetrate very high energy wall. How you do this in business? We call it leverage. So how to find leverage? To make something that requires, in general, a lot of energy, a lot of resources, but how with small resources to make something that's incredible, not obvious, and in general, straightforward, requires many resources. How to find this leverage? So these are just a couple of examples how quantum business think. So if you tune your brain and keep all QBT, I'll call it, QBT principles in mind, you can, use it anytime where you have to make decision, and you can apply anything together. So another example, interesting example, how, for example, you have your birthday, and you invited, I don't know, 5 people, and everybody likes something different. Okay, so some like eggs, some like meats, but you know, and you have very shortage of the food. You don't have time to buy a lot of food, so you have, I don't know, 2 eggs, you have 2 tomatoes, you have 1 piece of meat. So what you do, by anticipating that some people like something different, you call them and ask them, guys, what do you like? And then you know exactly, okay, this meat goes to this guy, these eggs goes to that guy, and you don't have to put a lot of resources to feed everybody and then just throw it to the basket after the party. So this is how quantum thinking, business thinking, enables to apply leverage.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense in terms of how to apply the laws of nature to how you pinpoint your exact customers and sort of use the information to make an effective leverage to sort of multiply the impact of the product. And it's like certainly a very powerful tool, given that it's like interdisciplinary and something that you realized. But as of right now, I also want to shift gears into how it translates into the world of venture capital and intellectual property. As you mentioned, that you've also been working as an investor in venture capital, and you also personally hold a lot of multiple patents for your inventions. So, what is one thing you think that a lot of business founders or like entrepreneurs they have to do, but they might not be currently doing it to effectively attract these fundings from these VC investors? And also, how much weight do you give to their intellectual property? Say they have some inventions to prove before you.
Yeah, actually, you asked two questions, and I have about 30 patents. And today, I don't see that. Okay, if we have about deep tech, if we talk about some very some mechanical stuff, physical product, that's very important to have patents on this. But in case of software, it actually doesn't work so much. What really works is traction, revenue, profit. So lead and lag indications about the product, about the company, about the startup. So you can have 1,000 patents, but if you don't know how to operate, how to build marketing, how to build sales, these patents are for vain, just loss of money and your attention. So instead of for a software companies, SaaS company, AI companies, instead of just pay attention and spend time on patents, I suggest to build a business as fast as possible. And then you can think about patents and everything else if you want. And by the way, it's not easy to make patent for software. Well, almost impossible. So this is my approach. And when I consider some startup, I don't know. I never ask about patent. I don't know, but I just forgot to ask about patent. I'm interested in the business, real business, what happens. We invest in companies having revenue, so they can show the traction, they can show market product fit, they can prove go-to-market strategy. This is what I'm looking for.
Okay, yeah, that definitely does make a lot of sense. Well, like since in the end of the day, the numbers really speak whether a company is going to end up being like more successful and more impactful versus the ones that might eventually fail due to insufficient like traction in the market. So, with that in mind, since applying that level of rigor to startups is really vital, and especially if we look towards some specific technologies that are like starting to reshape our lives. So, like, given your expertise in the medtech industry as well, do you think that there's like this sort of industry trend of how AI is starting to reshape the industry in general, and also therefore sort of affecting the consumers of whether it's be Gen Z or different generations completely?
AI started to shape everything except at this stage something like medical devices, like, I don't know, coronary stent or something like this, something physical that you cannot apply AI. So you can apply AI to data, to information, to some process, repeatable process. You cannot apply AI to create some medical device that doesn't work so far. We'll see, maybe robots will do it in future. But today, you have to, if you're going to build interesting observation. I see that when I'm at some meetup meetings and healthcare, digital health, medical devices meeting, people at the age between 20 to 35 they build AI products, software products, informational products, productivity products, something like these in healthcare, and operational products in healthcare. And founders 35 plus, they still doing very deep tech in medical devices, something that requires, I usually say, you will get to the market, then you will be gray hair. Because, it takes 15 years to bring medical, 10, 15 years to bring medical device to the market. And interesting advance happening in FDA today for wearables, for example, because wearables, it was a line between wearable medical devices, which I was involved in, and wellness devices. And our lives just show it. By the way, they use the same technology. For example, photoplethysmography or something ref, but same. But somehow, some people decided to go to make medical device, thinking that, okay, we have medical device, we will get reimbursement, we will get money from the government, and we will penetrate into the hospital. And some people went to wellness. And what I also was thinking, medical device is better. And today, I think maybe I was wrong. I had to build wellness device because today just this line is blurred. And physicians, they don't care about to prescribe some medical device like mine, or just go take Fitbit or something like this and measure yourself, and I get collected data. Because reimbursement happens not on medical device in this case, happens on data, and physicians walk for 20 minutes, for example, on this data. So this is interesting what happened. And today, I think, for example, if we take wearables, I don't think it's important to go to FDA only in case you have to do it only in case if you want to make immediate response to what happens and make recommendations. If you think about some trends, monitoring or something like this, you don't need to go to FDA. And here we come to AI, because medical device can treat, can monitor, and if it monitors, AI could help to identify the problem. Okay, if it's treatment, AI, it doesn't happen today, but can identify how these devices, for example, will help the very specific patient. It doesn't happen yet. But there is really device will continue to be device, but connected to AI capabilities, software capabilities, it becomes a system. It becomes a platform. And this is where I see some synergy between AI and medical devices.
Okay, yeah, that perfectly makes a lot of sense in terms of how AI is, in this sense, I guess, not essentially, I guess, disrupting the entire industry, but rather sort of empowering, whether it's sort of like data collection on these wearables or like allowing better analysis and problem identification through these, I guess, wellness apps. So with these, I guess, big pictures in mind, I want to sort of bring the overall, like, I want to finish with the last question that brings it down to the individual level for probably students or young professionals listening who are trying to find their paths in these sectors. So often we say that people in STEM usually often want to know about the how between the product, and like people who are more focused, I guess, in business might want to know like how much. For example, you just mentioned about revenue and also some indicators that might sort of indicate the overall success of the product. So I guess what is one piece of advice you would give to both, I guess, STEM kids and also business students to help them sort of reshape their thinking so they can have like both sides of the world, to sort of effectively, I guess, know not only know the technicalities of the product, but also think on like the executive level.
So STEM people, they have very huge advantage with respect to other people because they understand mathematics. And today, a lot of average people, common people, just went into the building some agentic agents, agentics, and all this around. But they actually use applications, and they're actually very superficial on this. So yeah, they can connect stuff, they can build whole the company based on agentic, but it's superficial in any case because they don't understand basics. They cannot develop new methodology. They just use methodology developed by STEM guys. So I think, and my recommendation to focus on something or piggyback on your abilities, on your knowledge, on your experience, and build some infrastructure. And by the way, in my last newsletter, I wrote about that today. All the money and VC money goes to AI infrastructure. So having STEM background, it's very easy to penetrate there and to start building the company in infrastructure space, build methodology, some electronics, new electronics, something that really requires very deep knowledge in mathematics and physics, by the way. And this is where you can find a lot of demand.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense since like I guess there's a lot of tools that are already available for like a lot of people right now to actually build their own agent businesses, but really like understanding the product that they do and also the infrastructure is like a complete different story. So well, we got through all of the questions. So thank you so much, Dr. Eisen, for joining us today. And you've really shown us that you don't really like in real life, you don't have to choose between being a scientist and an executive. And in fact, the most successful people are often both. And to our listeners, if this episode helped you bridge the gap between the how and how much, please remember to follow the podcast and share this episode with a friend who's caught between STEM and business. Until next time, keep building.